bit. Great to be here this morning. Thanks for joining us for worship today. Just got back from teen camp last week. It was awesome. I really want to share a lot about that, but it doesn't have much to do with my lesson. So I'm just not going to be able to. I'm going to have to wait till another lesson to come get it so I stay on track. Today, we're going to be talking about trust. 1 Samuel 20. And I knew that once I said that and put that up there, I would get those groans. Ugh. Because in some ways, it almost preaches itself. If I just say, hey guys, how we doing in our trust for God? We're like, oh, let me think about that for a minute. Hey guys, how's our trust going? Yeah, like, okay, it's going great. Or, oh man, these things are hard in my life. There's a lot going on there. And today, we're going to read 1 Samuel 20. And in context or part of this passage is labeled David and Jonathan. And this is really about the relationship between David and Jonathan. And so as I started to read through this chapter and figure out what I was going to teach today, I was kind of stuck a little bit because about 4 Sundays ago, we did a house church on the relationship between David and Jonathan. I was like, okay. And then last week, Noah preached extensively about relationship. And I was like, okay. And I was talking to Phil about it. And he was like, well, maybe the Bible is just telling us we need to talk a lot about relationships. And I said, amen, that could be true. That's what's great about preaching in an order of the Bible is kind of the Holy Spirit guides us and we preach what's there. And so as I talk through this and talk to some other people about what to preach about or talk about today, the theme of trust really rose to the top. And one thing about that is going to be the trust between David and Jonathan. But before we get into the Bible and those things, I've got to find a way to keep your attention, especially with the preteens in the house today. I see preteens in the back row back there. Give me that fist bump back there. Yeah. Preteens in the house. Give me those fist bumps. Hey, yeah, I got some of you here. Okay. I need to find a way. So I have people that are going to help me. If you're going to help me, come on out. Come on out. Here they come. Here they come. What would a lesson on trust be without some good old-fashioned trust falls? So they're ready here. They're going to do it. They've paired up best they can, and they're going to show us some examples. You guys can spread out all the way over here of some trust falls. We're going to see how they do trusting each other as they work some trust falls. Ready? All right, here we go, guys. Oh, we got one. We got a couple. You guys can go all at the same time. We got a whole audience out here. Ready? All right, here we go. Let's see who's going to trust who here. All right, let's see if they trust. On your mark. Get set. Fall. Oh, Evan did not trust. How do you not trust Ashton? Ashton's like the biggest. All right, flip it up now. Oh, okay. Flip it up now. Flip it up. Flip it up. Here we go. Flip it up. Let's see what we got. Evan, you got Ashton. Come on, man. You going to make me do Ashton? You got Ashton. Come on. Let's see if Ashton's going to trust you, Ev. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Here we go. Hey. All right. Now we're going to up the ante a little bit here. We're going to see who really trusts who. Go ahead. All right. This is Key, everybody. Kenai. He's up here. Sophie's over here. Here we go. We got a couple here. You guys come over here. Sam, you take the front of this. You guys go over there and help Sophie. You take the head of this, Sam, right here. All right. Here we go. They're off a chair now. They're a little bit higher. What do we got here? All right. When you're ready, let's see if they trust each other. On the mark. Get set. Oh, Sophie. Oh, Key. Yes. Good work, everybody. Good work, everybody. Nice job. Look what I found backstage. I'm trying to get around this cord here. 1 second. All right, y'all. So, Sophie, you gonna climb, Sophie? Here we go, y'all. 3, 2, 1. Nice work, everybody. Nice work, everybody. Way to go, teens. Thank you. Woo. So, in all honesty, in my head, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to pull this black thing out. I'm going to get up there. I'm going to fall. No problem. I just let you know, when I was up top, I was not feeling like no problem. I was like, wow, this is higher than I thought it was. And I picked some big guys to catch me, but are they really going to catch me? Like, whoo! But they got me. They got me. Yes. And so, as we read this chapter today, as we read 1 Samuel 20 and go through it, I want us to be looking in this chapter about trust. How do we see God displaying trust throughout this passage? How do we see David showing his trust in God as we read this passage today? So 1 Samuel 20 and verse 1. Let me put this back on here. All right. Then David fled from Naioth to Ramah and went to Jonathan and asked, what have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged your father that he's trying to kill me? So we've been reading the passage. We know what's just happened in the passage before that. I've got to be careful with these names so I get them right. Saul is trying to kill David. That's the title of the passage before this one. Saul tries to kill David. And so he comes to Jonathan and he's like, what is going on? What have I done? Why is your father trying to kill me? Verse 2, never, Jonathan replied, what? You are not going to die. Look, my father doesn't do anything great or small without letting me know. Why would he hide me from this? It isn't so. So Jonathan was naive in this situation. It's so funny. Like I said, he lived the first one. He saw his dad try to kill David, but he was still like, oh, no, you're fine. He's not going to try to kill you. If you guys remember, he literally threw a spear at him last time. Like, okay, Jonathan's like, oh, no, he's not going to kill you. But David took an oath and said, your father knows very well that I found favor in your eyes. And he said to himself, Jonathan must not know this or he will be grieved. Yet as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, there's only one step between me and death. Jonathan said to David, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it for you. So they decide together to figure this out. Verse 5. So David said, look, tomorrow is the new moon feast, and I'm supposed to dine with the king. But let me go and hide in the field until evening of the day of the afternoon. And if your father misses me at all, tell him David earnestly asked my permission to hurry to Bethlehem, his hometown, because an annual sacrifice is being made there for his whole clan. If he says, very well, then your servant is safe. But if he loses his temper, you can be sure that he's determined to harm me. As for you, show kindness to your servant, for you have brought him into the covenant with you before the Lord. If I'm guilty, then kill me yourself. Why hand me over to your father? Verse 9, never, Jonathan said, if I had the least inkling that my father was determined to harm you, wouldn't I tell you? David asked, who will tell me if your father answers you harshly? Come, Jonathan said, let's go out into the field. So they went together. Then Jonathan said to David, I swear by the Lord, the God of Israel, that I will surely sound out my father by this time the day after tomorrow. If he is favorably disposed towards you, will I not send you word and let you know? But if my father intends to harm you, may the Lord deal with Jonathan, be it ever so severely. If I don't let you know and send you away in peace, may the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. But show me unfailing kindness like the Lord's kindness as long as I live, so that I may not be killed. And do not ever cut off your kindness from my family, not even when the Lord has cut off every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth. All right, we're going to skip down to verse 18. Then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is the new moon feast. You will be missed because your seat will be empty. The day after tomorrow, Toward evening, go to the place where you hid when the trouble began and wait by the stone of Ezekiel. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it as though I were shooting at a target. Then I will send a boy and say, go find the arrows. If I say to him, look, the arrows are on this side of you, bring them here, then come, because as surely as the Lord lives, you are safe. There is no danger. But if I say to the boy, look, the arrows are beyond you, then you must go, because the Lord has sent you away. And about the matter you and I discussed, remember, the Lord is a witness between you and me forever. So in the next couple of verses, they enact their plan. Jonathan goes to the table and the situation happens. And then in verse 30, you see what happens as Jonathan tells his dad where David was. In verse 30, Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan and said to him, you son of a perverse and rebellious woman. I would say that's anger. Don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse at your own shame and at the shame of your mother who bore you? As long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor the kingdom will be established. Now send someone to bring him to me, for he must die. Verse 32, why should he be put to death? What has he done? Jonathan asked his father. But Saul hurled a spear at him to kill him. Then Jonathan knew that his father intended to kill David. Jonathan got up from the table in fierce anger. On the second day of the feast, he did not eat because he was grieved at his father's shameful treatment of David. So in the next few verses, we see Jonathan goes out and does the arrow thing, right? He goes out, he acts like he's shooting at a target, he shoots the arrows, and he sends the boy out to go get the arrows. In verse 41, after the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. Then they kissed each other and wept together. But David wept the most. So as he shot the arrows, he didn't shoot them, he shot them, but as the boy was going out, he didn't say, oh, it's to the side, because if it was, oh, they're to the side, that means he would have been safe. But he said, oh no, the arrows are out beyond you, which meant David was in harm. In verse 42, Jonathan said to David, go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying the Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants, and between my descendants forever. And David left, and Jonathan went back to his town. What a story of trust. We see David's trust in God here in incredible ways. I felt like I trusted the fellas when I was up on top of that whatever you want to call it. But for what David is going through here, his entire life is at stake. His livelihood, what he is, it's at stake. And we see David continuing to put his trust in God. And there's a couple of different ways that we see, oh, I forgot to do my trust falls. Oh, okay, that's it. There we go. That's fine. We see David trusting in God through God's people, through his people. You know, in this story, as we've read over the last couple of weeks, we see, especially last week, we see Saul putting his trust in some different people. First, we see him put his trust in Saul. He was in the castle with Saul. And literally, like I said, Saul threw an arrow at him, trying to kill him. Like that, he put his trust in Saul. He went and lived with him after he felt like it could be hit or miss. He still trusted Saul, and David threw the arrow at him. He then, the previous chapter, we see put his trust in Micah, his wife. He puts his trust in Micah. She puts a silhouette or something under his bed, like Noah talked about. And then David gets to run off, but when confronted about it, who does she blame? David. She's not like, oh yeah, I stood up for my husband. She was like, oh no, he made me do it. He was going to kill me if I didn't do that. He put all the blame on her. And then he, in the same chapter, he trusted Samuel, the spiritual leader. And what happened in that situation? Well, Samuel let this Saul, who was trying to kill him, back in with God's people. He allowed him to come in and prophesy with him. Like if I was David and I was putting my trust in Samuel, I would, no, don't let him in here. What are you doing? He's trying to kill me. But in fact, Samuel let Saul back in to prophesy with them together. I don't know about you, but it's a good thing they didn't have movies back then. Because all that backstabbing and things going on, if I was David, I'd have been like, man, I've seen this movie. I'm out of here. Like, I'm not doing this again. I know what happens. And then through all that backstabbing and things going on, In this passage here, we see him put his trust in another person. We see him put his trust in Jonathan. Not only in Jonathan, but who is Jonathan? Jonathan is the heir to the throne. So he's putting his trust in the person that if he dies, if David dies, Jonathan is going to inherit the throne. Again, good thing they didn't have movies back then. Have you all seen Gladiator? It doesn't turn out well, right? The heir to the throne ends up killing somebody who the king wanted to be heir. Like, it doesn't seem to be working too well. So I'm glad they didn't have movies back then. But David insisted and continued to put his trust in God's people around him. And he trusted God to protect him. You can hit my next slide. We see David's heart in Psalm 17. And by no means is this necessarily written at the time this is happening, but we see David's heart through this psalm as he talks about his relationship with God. And in verse 6, he says, I call on you, my God, for you will answer me. Turn my ear to me and hear my prayer. Verse 8, keep me as an apple of your eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings from the wicked who are out to destroy me, from the mortal enemies who surround me. Verse 14, but your hand save me from such people, Lord, from those who for those of this world whose reward is in this life. And in verse 15, as for me, I will be vindicated and I will see your face when I awake. I will be satisfied with seeing your likeness. David says, hey, my enemies all around me. I have no hope. I have nothing to put my hope in. The people around me they're untrustworthy. But you, God, I trust. But you, God, I'm willing, when I wake, no matter what's going on around me, I will be vindicated when I see your face, satisfied in seeing your likeness. David's heart is, no matter what people are doing around him, no matter how people are treating him around him, I trust in God. What an incredible heart. What an incredible way of seeing things. I'm not sure I would respond the same way if I was in David's shoes. I don't know if I have responded the same way when I was in David's shoes. You know, who are these people in David's life? Well, his boss. If you had a boss who was trying to get you fired, how'd you feel about that person? Would you want to put your trust in them? If you had a wife that was blaming you for everything that was going wrong in your life, how would you feel about that situation? Would you want to put your trust in them? If you had a teacher that kept giving you F's every time on you don't get F's anymore, E's on your paper every time that you trying your hardest, and you got E on every paper, and then maybe you got a D, would you be feeling like you trusted that teacher? When your spiritual leader started to act funny and started to be influenced by people who you knew were out to hurt you, how would you feel about that? If you felt like you weren't even sure you could trust your best friend, how would you feel about that? I don't know about you, but when I get in those situations, I get angry. I want to shut down. I get bitter. I get afraid. I start going through the what ifs. Oh, if he treats me this way, what if this? Well, if they treat me this way, what if I do this? I get skeptical. What if this person has an agenda? What if they're trying to hurt me? What if their whole plan in life is just to bring me down? When I get my boss, my wife, my spiritual leader, my best friend, and they start to do things around me that make me uncertain, my first thing isn't to put my trust in them and God through them. My first thing isn't, okay, well, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust that God is working through you to do amazing things in my life. But that's exactly what we see David doing here as he continues his journey, is no matter what's going on, no matter who's hurt him in the past, he finds Jonathan and says, I'm going to put my trust in you, even though you have every reason to betray me. You have every reason to get me killed so you can be king. He says, I'm still going to trust in you because I trust in God. You know, I've been around the church for 26 years. I've watched my friends come and go. I've been accused of trying to take over a church. I've been misunderstood. I've been passed over for spiritual opportunities and positions. I've given my heart and I've watched it get stepped on. I've been yelled at. I've been ignored. I've been falsely accused many times. And all this by people that I've considered my good friends. Every time I've had a choice to make. I've had a choice to make. Am I going to trust God that he's doing a good work through these people? Or am I going to give in to my frustration, my fear, and my insecurity and let those things trump my faith in God? And I could stand up here now and say, oh yeah, that was a couple years, that was 2 years ago, that was 6 months ago, that was 20 years ago. Oh, that was easy. It wasn't easy. We'll talk about it in a few minutes, but I spent time on my knees crying out to God, prayer walks, running. God, I don't understand what's going on. These are my friends. I trusted them. I loved them. I valued them. God, what are you doing to me through these people? Crying out to God, asking him to fix it or make it better, to help me understand. And all God kept giving me back as a response was, do you trust me? Do you trust me? I got your back. I see what's happening. I feel for your pain. Do you trust me? You know, I've been here, we've been here for about 3 years. And I know that this church has history that goes back way, way, way further than 3 years. How many of you have been here, part of this church, for over 10 years? Raise your hand. Man, that's over half of the group if you look around. How many of you have been here, part of this church, for over 20 years? That's at least a quarter of the group. And I don't want to go any further than that because I don't want y'all to get embarrassed. Like, that tells you how old I am. Man, No, I know, I get it. I told you I've been a follower of Jesus for 26 years. You guys have been here for a while. Chances are, you or you know someone who's been mistreated, hurt, or neglected. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry. As it's happened to me, I feel the pain. I know that you felt the pain. I'm sorry. In fact, I've been here long enough. I've probably hurt some of you, or neglected some of you, or mistreated some of you. And I'm sorry. It was never my intention. I didn't ever come into any discussion thinking I'm going to be mean today. Ooh, I can't wait to get him. Ooh, this is going to be, I sometimes do that about Evan. No, I'm just kidding, Evan. No, I don't go into any conversation or any situation with the desire of thinking I am going to hurt this person today. But the truth is, I'm a sinner. I fall short. I make mistakes. And I'm sure that I've hurt more than one of you in this audience today. And I'm sorry. You know, our church has history. There's things that our church is known for, not known for. Our family of churches is known for, not known for. And I'm sure that some of those things have hurt you. And maybe you're feeling and re-feeling, and scabs have been open lately in some of those things. And you're hurting today because of some of those things that have happened to you in your past. I'm sorry. That's painful. That hurts. And just like us, just like me, just like the people sitting right next to you, we have a decision to make. Are we going to trust God through those hurts? Or are we going to give in to our fear, our insecurity, and our doubts? Those are the options before us. And I know it hurts. Hear me correctly. I'm not trying to dismiss or take anything away. I've been through it. I don't know what you've been through, but I've come pretty close. And if I haven't, I know somebody who has, because I've been around quite a bit. And it doesn't make it easy. But God hopes that just like David did, no matter how many times he was let down, no matter how many times bad thing happened, no matter how many times he shouldn't have trusted in the people God put in his life, David set a great example of trusting in those people that God put in his life, not because he trusted in those people, but because he trusted in God. You know, our staff, the Mines, the Bookers, the Shamans, Shakira, we want to be trustworthy. Are we going to make mistakes? Yeah. Are we going to hurt you? Yeah. Are we going to make decisions that you disagree with? Yeah. And despite those truths, we still want to be worthy of your trust. We still pray every day. When we have conversations with you, we pray about them. We read our scriptures every day. We value God. And we feel like, man, God has entrusted you, the church, for us to shepherd and to love. We are going to do our best to do that. We want to be trustworthy. And if we hurt you, no, let me take that back. When we hurt you, please come talk to us. Please come share with us. Tell us how we hurt you. Tell us the things you want to see. We don't want to be this barrier between you and God. We don't want to be this thing that stops you from trusting God. But the reality is, we're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to hurt you. You're going to hurt each other. And so as we engage and deal in our relationships, we're going to have these hurts. The only thing that helps it go, David and Jonathan talked it out. David said his fears to Jonathan. I'm afraid that you're going to betray me. I'm afraid you're going to kill me. He said that to John. How would you feel if your friend came and said that to you? I feel like you're going to kill me right now. Oh, thanks, I think. Like, that'd be weird. But he trusted him and said, even though I feel this way, he shared his feelings with him, told him what he thought, and engaged in that conversation. And if somebody doesn't listen, whether it's a staff member or then take it to somebody else, the Bible says. Because we want to help each other listen. We want to help each other be trustworthy. Because we don't want to stand in the way of you trusting in God, like it sometimes happen. But even if all those things happen, and even if you do get hurt, and even if people don't listen, we still have a choice. David still had a choice. Do I trust Jonathan or do I not trust Jonathan? I can imagine being David sitting behind that rock and those arrows start flying. Boom, boom. Okay, here it comes. What's going to happen? Is he going to say, go to the right, the arrows are over there? Or is he going to say, go a little further? The arrows are out there. And then once Jonathan said, hey, the arrows are a little further, keep going, David had to make a decision again. This was the moment of the most decision right here. Am I going to trust Jonathan that he's telling me the truth? And he stood up from behind that rock and he walked out to meet Jonathan. He didn't know what he was going to find. Jonathan could have had an arrow in his hand, ready to stab him. But David trusts Jonathan, and God protected him through those relationships. I believe David did this because he trusted in God to work through Jonathan despite what the outcome was. David's example to trust in God through David's example is to trust in God through his people. He had no reason to, but he did it anyway. He loved Jonathan deeply. He was willing to forgive 7 times 77. He looked not only to his own interests, but to the interests of others, and he showed grace in incredible ways. How could he do this? How could David do this? Trust in Jonathan after he'd been betrayed so many times, after he was so fearful for his life? Well, he trusted in God through his own plan, through God's plan. You know, as we go back to the story of David, in 1 Samuel 16, we read that David was anointed king in 1 Samuel 16. Now, I don't know, again, about you guys and how you think things work, but if I was anointed king, there would be some expectations to that anointment. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're president and you're elected president, there's like some expectations after that, and it takes a few months, but ultimately you get in the highest office, right? There's some expectations. Well, in 1 Samuel 16, we see with David, the Lord came on him powerfully. That's awesome. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but that's awesome. The Lord coming on you powerfully. I'd feel pretty good about that. They prayed for him as king. He won battles for the king. He was very successful. God was with him. But then he started to get chased everywhere. And then the king threw spears at him. And in this situation, he was certain that the king was out to kill him. And now he's hiding and running for his life. If I was anointed king, I would not expect this to be what was happening in my life. I would not expect it, oh, cool, this is a great plan. This is how it's going to go. No, that's not what I expected at all. And in fact, if I don't know what was happening, but based on kind of things that happened, if I was David, I was sitting behind that rock, I would have expected those arrows to go out and Jonathan to say, oh, hey, the arrows are off to the right, meaning you're accepted back in the kingdom. Of course I am. I'm going to be king. Of course I'm accepted back in the kingdom. Why would the king want to harm me? I'm the next king. God is going to set this up for me. But that's not at all what happened. That's not at all what happened. He found himself on the run again. On his life, and next Sunday we'll talk about his trip to Nob, and that's what happened. This situation doesn't make sense. Why would have God given him this path on his way to the throne? Doesn't make any sense. That's not what we think. Why would Saul get angry at him? Why would he have to flee? What is the reason for all of this happening? I don't know. But ultimately, I know God was working through his plan to get David exactly where he needed him to be. I don't know about you, but when the plan for my life doesn't work out the exact same way I think it should, I tend to lose heart. I tend to become impatient. Don't we live in the I want it now society? Man, the other day I was hungry. I was like, what do you mean I got to put it in the microwave for 3 minutes? Like, what in the world? I want it now. Like, what? I want my food 3 minutes in the microwave. But we live in such a society where we want things now. And if we feel like God has put us on a path, whether it's to marriage, whether it's to kids, whether it's to retirement, whether it's to money, whether it's to fame, fortune, we want it now. If we go on this journey like David did, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to give it to you, but over here, 20 years from now, we don't have much patience for that nowadays in our society. I don't know about you, but I give up. When things don't keep going my way, it's really easy for me to give up, quit, especially when it comes to my spiritual battle. Oh, God's not with me. I didn't get this thing I wanted today. Clearly, God's not with me. So it doesn't matter if I am angry, if I'm bitter, if I'm upset, if I yell or mean to my kids. That doesn't matter because clearly God's not with me anyway. And it often breeds insecurity in me when I don't see things happening the way that I want to right now in the things that I'm doing. Is God ever going to work in me or things that I feel? And I may not want, and when God does things that I don't like and it's kind of close to it, I'm like, well, that's not what I wanted, God. Is this where you're going to leave me? Because it's close, but what I really wanted was here. And it can breed that, am I not good enough to have this, God? God, are you putting me here because I can't have this because I'm not good enough? When things don't keep going right in my life, these are the things that start happening in me. Jack's going to come up to us and share about his overcoming, his trust in his relationship with God.
Well, hello there. So if you don't already know, my name is Jack Lako. I go to Sherwood High School. I play football, wrestling, and rugby. And so on April 30th of this year, I was actually baptized right out there in like a little tub. So before all that happened, my spiritual journey actually began in one of the worst moments of my life. So I was playing football and I broke my wrist on a play, and I went to the doctors, and they basically told me multiple times, different doctors, they're like, the area you broke your wrist in, the way you broke it, we don't know if you're gonna be able to play contact sports again because it's just not gonna heal. So being heard, hearing this, I'm devastated. My life was centered largely around these sports, and to hear this, I was like, wow. But soon later on, I ended up meeting up with Evan Thompson at my school, amazing guy, and he talked to me about Jesus. And hearing this, I was intrigued. I wanted to go to church, and in November, I come out to church, and my path ended up leading me to here. Over the next few months, I just began to read the Bible, and I actually made Jesus Lord of my life. So through this injury, God opened a spiritual door to then pursue him. Through that time, I knew that the doctors could not help me, but I knew that God could help me. So once he made his way to the center of my life, I realized that even in the darkest of times, when we seek for God, he can help, he can guide. And this really did bring me closer to Jesus than ever before. Not only did God help me trust in him spiritually through this situation, but even mentally, I grew from, this time. I was able to give this choice whether I would fall victim to my injury and just be like, I can't do this, or I would rise to the occasion and work harder than ever before. I decided that giving up was no longer an option, that in order to succeed, I would have to work harder, fight through the pain, through the adversity. These moments in our lives where our well-being is questioned, where, we're really questioned as human beings if we're, all right or doing well, is when we grow the most. We learn the most. As a 17-year-old, I'm only partially way through my life, right? Hopefully. And many more struggles are to come. In every one of our lives, we're all going to go and experience these hardships, these times where we're just struggling. And so one of the scriptures which helped me during this time was Proverbs 3:5, which states, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." In my time, I believe that I could lean on my own understanding and think of this as like this horrible thing, and how could this happen to me? But as time goes on, I started to realize maybe this wasn't so bad after all. We may not understand why something happened today. We might not understand tomorrow or even 10 years from now why this thing happened in our life. But by the time that we meet our maker, we start to understand, things start ironing themselves out, and you start to see the grand picture. You start to understand that this is God's plan. So I ask you guys to place your trust in God. Let us allow ourselves to go and allow him into our lives, even when we're navigating through these tough times. Anyways, this is my story, and thank you for letting me share today.
David's response to adversity, Jack's response to adversity, was to continue to trust in God's plan. The reality of David's situation was he became the leader of Israel. He was called the man after God's own heart. This is who David became, but he had to trust in God's plan to allow himself to be to that part. As we close out here, my encouragement to you, as Jack just said, is that we trust in him. David never let people or an unclear path deter him from the confidence that God was in control. He was willing to trust in people when it made no sense. He was willing to trust in God's plan when it made no sense. And David's not the only one who we see doing this. We see these same traits in Jesus. Jesus trusted in people to his demise, and he trusted in God's plan, even though it led him to a stop at the cross. Let's wrestle in our hearts together with these things as we put our trust in God. Amen.